The irritations we perceive in others may serve as a profound catalyst for self-discovery and introspection. Nevertheless, he did not effectively communicate how one might utilize that understanding as an instrument for significant transformation. Stay attentive, as the insights I am about to present concerning the psychology of silence will significantly transform your method of addressing disrespect. In the face of disrespect, one might instinctively feel the urge to confront the individual responsible, seeking to ensure they grasp the implications of their behavior and possibly to educate them in the process. Nevertheless, referencing Carl Jung's foundational insights into human psychology, it becomes clear that the most significant reaction is found not in verbal expression, but rather in the intentional cessation of involvement. By the end of this discussion, you will understand why silence has become a powerful tool in psychological strategy. Here's something most people never realize about disrespectful behavior, and Carl Jung discovered this through decades of studying the human psyche when you withdraw access to your time, energy, and praise. And you're not just sending a message, you're activating what Jung called the shadow, that hidden part of their personality. They don't want to face people who disrespect you, operate from a place of psychological comfort. They assume you'll still be there tolerating their behavior because your kindness keeps you around. Jung identified this as projection. They're projecting their own insecurities onto you, expecting you to carry the emotional burden of their dysfunction. But here's where it gets interesting and why you need to pay attention to every word I'm saying next when you stop answering there. Call, stop replying to their messages, stop showing up where you create what Jung called active imagination in their minds. Suddenly, they're left talking to an echo, trying to figure out what went wrong. That confusion isn't random, it's their psyche beginning to confront the shadow they've been avoiding. Carl Jung discovered something profound about human nature that will blow your mind. Aid. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But what happens when one substance suddenly disappears? A notable psychological discomfort arises from the experience of exclusion devoid of justification. Jung characterized this phenomenon as individuation, a process that urges an individual to connect with their authentic self. Your absence acts as a reflective surface, revealing their behaviors unclouded by your emotional reactions. This aspect is crucial, so avoid rushing through it, as this contemplative process demonstrates a far greater significance than any possible discussion. The rationale resides in its capacity to incite self-examination. Jung acknowledged that authentic transformation arises exclusively from introspection, rather than from external pressures. In the context of Carl Jung's examination of psychological dynamics, the act of withdrawing access does not denote passivity. Instead, it represents a conscious decision to embrace what he referred to as conscious suffering rather than engage in futile confrontation. You have realized that your time and energy are far too valuable to be wasted on someone who does not appreciate your inherent worth. Jung articulated, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are when you prioritize self-protection over retribution. Engaging in this profound journey of transformation reveals a psychological nuance that shifts the entire perspective. The deeper your focus on your internal psychological landscape, the process Jung described as inner work significantly elevates your presence in the perception of others. At first, they might interpret your absence as a fleeting phase, anticipating your eventual reappearance, as has been the case previously. Nevertheless, as Carl Jung articulated through his clinical observations, the human psyche cannot disregard a prolonged absence. Time evolves from days into weeks, and the burden of silence grows heavier. They start to recognize your revitalized essence, your focus shifting, your energy no longer centered on them. This marks the instance when what Jung referred to as the transcendent function becomes relevant. The recognition that they have forfeited access to you, not via explicit actions, but through a deliberate psychological decision. Jung articulated a significant insight that has the potential to transform your perspective. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. However, what proves even more challenging for those who have wronged you is to observe your total self-acceptance while they remain trapped within their own psychological limitations. There is a significant power in the process of quietly transforming, progressing without the necessity of proclaiming every minor development. You deftly adjust the ambient energy, harmonizing with Jung's perspectives on psychological metamorphosis. As onlookers await a response, yearning to observe a fleeting instance of fragility or hostility, you meticulously nurture your development beyond the public eye. Few experiences elicit as profound a sense of remorse in those who have misjudged you as the moment they come to terms with their erroneous assessment of your path towards self-actualization. They witness your rise, frequently unaware of their contribution to your story, which encourages their own reflective endeavors. Jung proposed that the human psyche is inherently drawn to predictability and patterns. Nevertheless, genuine psychological resilience arises from what he termed controlled chaos, the ability to demonstrate unpredictability in responses while maintaining a sense of inner balance. The mistake that many make is the assumption that it is necessary to announce their advancements. It is their conviction that true success is only validated when it is openly communicated, analyzed, or corroborated. Nonetheless, Jung acknowledged that genuine psychological growth is independent of external affirmation. It does not pursue recognition. It reveals itself through what he described as active imagination and introspective effort. As an individual embarks on a journey of mental, emotional, financial, or spiritual elevation, often quietly and without ostentation, they gain what Jung identified as a psychological advantage. Your capricious nature renders you enigmatic, complicating the ability of others to foresee your behavior. This puzzle can elicit a feeling of psychological intimidation, especially as individuals find themselves trapped in what Jung described as unconscious patterns, participating in trivial conversations, probing motives, and seeking to provoke a response serve merely as diversions. You are undergoing a transformation, emphasizing self-improvement, engaging deeply with literature, modifying your perspective, and choosing serenity over superficial conversations. This segment reveals the complexities of Carl Jung's psychological theories, requiring a deep understanding of the following concepts. Your approach has shifted significantly. You no longer feel compelled to justify your actions and choose not to engage in every debate that arises. This transition encourages individuals to reevaluate their views of you, not solely based on your spoken words, but also in light of your personal evolution. Jung suggests that this transformation initiates what he referred to as the anima/animus projection, causing others to recognize qualities in you that had previously escaped their attention. This process is notable for its capacity to obviate the necessity for retribution. Your psychological growth acts as the story it communicates to those around you. You did not break my spirit. Instead, you reveal my authentic self. Every measured step you take towards your goals, each accomplishment you attain in silence, and every internal conflict you overcome forms a vital component of the hero's journey, as described by Jung. They misjudged your capabilities, presuming you would stay dormant, dependent on their validation. Their assumption that their indifference would define your essence was met with your quiet resilience, revealing the profound reality that the mind holds an extraordinary capacity for self-repair and metamorphosis when cultivated with care. As Carl Jung astutely observed, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. Upholding one's composure in the face of disrespect embodies a profound psychological choice. This does not signify a lack of strength. Instead, it corresponds with Jung's concept of conscious control. In the presence of disrespect, individuals often expect an emotional reaction, as emphasized by Jung's explorations into psychological stimuli. They seek to elicit your ire, to stimulate you into vocal expression and participation in discourse. They endeavor to observe your unraveling, for it bestows upon them a sense of psychological superiority. Nonetheless, by preserving your equanimity, selecting silence rather than raising your voice, and prioritizing tranquility over turmoil, you profoundly transform the power dynamics that Jung described. By refraining from the immediate satisfaction of observing your unraveling, you employ a strategy that is deeply enlightening from a psychological standpoint. Composure transcends the simple act of suppressing emotions, as Jung suggests. It encompasses the mastery of these feelings through a process he refers to as conscious integration. One of Carl Jung's most notable findings revolved around the notion of psychological boundaries. He asserted, "Understanding your own darkness is the most effective way to navigate the darknesses of others." Nevertheless, what he discovered afterward possesses the capacity to fundamentally alter your approach to setting boundaries for all time. The most compelling expression of self-respect is the creation of boundaries without the need for explanation. In the face of disrespect, one might first feel compelled to analyze the effects of such actions on oneself. Yet, true psychological strength lies in what Jung described as sovereign enforcement. Protecting your boundaries with subtlety, without seeking validation, does not require the forceful closing of doors or raising one's voice. It simply necessitates what Jung identified as a nuanced shift in consciousness. One refrains from engaging with communications that drain one's vitality. One abstains from yielding when the genuine feeling is opposition. One tends to distance oneself from individuals who only seek connection during moments of necessity. At first, they might be unaware of this change, but over time, the privileges they once had start to diminish, not out of ill intent, but as a reflection of what Jung described as psychological self-preservation. A significant observation from Carl Jung concerning human nature frequently escapes the notice of many. He expressed, "All that provokes us in others can guide us toward a deeper comprehension of our own selves." Nevertheless, he discovered that there is a distinct psychological serenity in choosing to forego the path of vengeance. It is not a deficiency in strength that accounts for this, but rather your deep comprehension of the matter at hand. Life possesses an extraordinary capacity to address psychological debts in a way that surpasses any endeavors you may attempt. Jung called this synchronicity the meaningful coincidences that occur when you align with your authentic self rather than reacting from your wounded ego. Revenge often keeps you psychologically tied to. The very person who wronged you, it drains your energy, clouds your vision, and keeps your emotions stuck in what Jung termed the past-oriented shadow, but when you let go of the need to retaliate, it ends. To invest that energy into becoming a better version of yourself, you break the psychological cycle. Sometimes the most powerful psychological move you can make is to simply disappear, not out of weakness, not out of defeat, but out of what Carl Jung called conscious choice and self-respect. When someone disrespects you repeatedly, they expect you to stay, they expect you to keep showing up, to keep giving them access, to continue tolerating their behavior. But when you choose to walk away quietly, to remove yourself without warning, your absence becomes what Jung identified as a louder psychological MES. Sage than your presence ever was. And in that silence, they begin to feel the loss they didn't think was possible. Departing with a sense of dignity transcends the notions of ghosting or pettiness. Utilizing Jung's perspectives on psychological health, it represents the process of regaining one's vitality. It represents a pivotal moment of enlightenment in which the individual ceases to find merit in proving their value to those who do not recognize it. The pursuit of inconsequential conversations comes to an end. The expectation of contrition fades away, and the effort to rectify what was never flawed is relinquished. Rather, one departs with what Jung referred to as individuated grace, free from theatrics, concluding remarks, or justifications. This form of departure carries a psychologically evocative essence, urging others to reflect on their own behaviors devoid of the interference of your emotional reactions. Carl Jung articulated that this mode of enforced introspection acts as one of the most powerful agents for psychological metamorphosis. Individuals come to realize that your presence was never a given. Instead, it was a privilege they relinquished through their own unmindful behaviors. As time advances, they may endeavor to re-establish contact, contemplating the motivations underlying your retreat. At that point, you have reached a level of psychological autonomy, embodying the principles articulated by Jung, and are no longer in pursuit of resolution from those who caused the injury. The conclusion of your absence was not a punitive measure. Instead, it functioned as a protective mechanism for your very being. Carl Jung suggested that the most significant relationship one can develop is the one with their own self. By removing yourself from sources that drain your vitality, you open the door to experiences that uplift your essence. Those who previously overlooked your value will watch from a distance as you thrive on your own. This understanding reverberates with greater significance than any spoken dialogue, rebuttal, or dramatic encounter. Long after your departure, they will perceive the absence in the silence, the emptiness where you once occupied space, and the grace you exemplified in your exit. Within that void, regret is destined to flourish, as Jung anticipated. Consequently, when confronted with the absurdity of being undervalued, disregarded, or having your benevolence ignored, remember the profound insights Jung offered about the transformative capabilities of the psyche. Avoid the impulse to rationalize your behavior or to seek affirmation from others. Exit with a sense of calm and grace, allowing them to reflect on your departure. In your stillness, they will perceive everything that is vital concerning the person they have chosen to relinquish. I genuinely value your presence during this journey of discovery. If you have discerned value in today's discussion, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and disseminate this video to those who might find it advantageous.